How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
My fellow Americans, welcome across the fruited plain. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, very happy to have you. We got a busy day and I'm trying, let's see, Donald Trump's been speaking. He just got out of court. He's not happy with the judge. Now he's walking away from the camera here. He says the gag order against him is very unfair. I will tell you, he is playing with fire. The judge would love any opportunity to throw him in jail. And it's not good. He's under this gag order and he's tweeting. He can't help himself, it seems, and that's not a good thing. However, I counterintuitively, I know it's counterintuitively. Here's something I've noticed, particularly in the coverage of the left and Donald Trump, and it's why he keeps beating them and why they keep being confounded by him. If you say anything that comes across as positive to Donald Trump, the left attacks so viciously, they're unwilling to hear or believe the argument, and they hate him so much in their bubble, they can't acknowledge that there are those who might disagree with them, who might have a different take on the matter. This works to Donald Trump's advantage. It's the left's Achilles heel, because in their bubble, they know no one who likes him, no one who will say anything nice about him, no one who's willing to defend him. And remember, he got 74 million votes in 2020. What they don't want to hear, what they don't like, what they don't appreciate is that I think the trial coverage helps Trump. I don't know if y'all have seen this, but his popularity is going up. His favorability rating compared to Joe Biden has gone up. Trump, after a series of polls that suggested that Joe Biden was gaining on Trump, Trump is now back in the lead in the Real Clear Politics polling average. Morning Consult, which is an online poll, has Biden up 1, and Marist has Biden up 3, but NBC News has Trump up 2. Emerson has Trump up 3. The left-wing Daily Kos has Trump up 1. Yahoo News has a tie. The New York Times Siena College poll, the most accurate poller in the last 2 elections, has Trump up 1. And what matters, of course, is the Electoral College, not the national polling, but you can get a sense of the Electoral College swing state polling from the national polling, and that doesn't bode well for Joe Biden. Joe Biden's job approval rating, he's down 15.5 points. He's at 40.2%. That's not good. 64% of Americans believe the country's headed in the wrong direction. Only 26%. Only a quarter of Americans believe the country's headed in the right direction. 2/3 believe it's the wrong direction. These aren't good signs for Joe Biden, but the left hates Donald Trump so much they're convinced no one will vote for him. Now, they have some encouragement from some polling. Marist, which is a pretty good pollster, has Joe Biden up 3, but among people who are going to vote, and that is, how do they know people are going to vote? If you voted in the last 2 presidential elections. If you voted in the last couple of presidential elections, you're going to vote in this presidential election, and those people have Joe Biden up 6. That number struck me because that's the number from the New York Times Siena College poll of people who voted in 2020. Of people who voted in 2020, the New York Times found that Joe Biden leads by 6 points. So while Donald Trump leads nationally among voters, among people who absolutely are going to vote because they have a history of voting in presidential elections, Joe Biden leads. That's where the Democrats are getting their encouragement. That's where the Democrats are getting their hope. But I got to tell you, I think the trial coverage helps Donald Trump. I really do think that it makes Donald Trump seem sympathetic. It makes him seem bullied. It makes him seem like the system is put upon him. People do not like the government picking winners and losers. People do not like the government bullying, and people loathe the idea of politicians wielding the power of government to persecute their political enemies. And that's how it comes across in New York, particularly when so many legal analysts on the left and the right acknowledge that this case really doesn't have merit. What I find very notable, too, is that the media is profiling this inside, this is the headline from Politico, inside the off-the-record calls held by anti-Trump legal pundits. You would not be surprised to learn a lot of the talking heads on television who hate Donald Trump coordinate on phone calls and share intel and information. Essentially, what's happening is they're coordinating their talking points, and these are people who are influential behind the scenes of the media. These are guys that members of the press call for information to shape the ideas of the reporters. Y'all may not appreciate that this happens, but I am someone who this happens to on occasion. Reporters will call me. The goal is not to interview me to quote me in a story. The goal is for me to explain my view to the reporters as the reporters are shaping their view. And now the Politico tells us that there are a number of people doing this on these calls. Norman Eisen was a senior Obama administration official and a CNN legal analyst. He holds this call with Bill Kristol, the commentator, Lawrence Tribe, the liberal constitutional lawyer, John Dean, who is White House counsel for Richard Nixon, who's now become a progressive, George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's former husband, who hates Donald Trump and co-founded the Lincoln Project, Andrew Weissman, a federal prosecutor who's now a talking head on MSNBC. Oh, and Jeffrey Tubin, who's on CNN, is there as well. So you got CNN's Tubin, you got Andrew Weissman of MSNBC, George Conway of MSNBC, and Lawrence Tribe of MSNBC, and Bill Kristol of The Bulwark. You've got Norman Eisen on there as well. You got a number of talking heads. These people, and Michael Ludig sometimes gets on there. You know, Michael Ludig, the one who assured everyone on television that, of course, the Supreme Court would side with Colorado and throw Donald Trump off the ballot. These people get on a call together regularly, talk about these cases about Donald Trump, and then go out into the media and whisper in the ears of reporters. And they hate Donald Trump. They despise Donald Trump. So when they're in the echo chamber, they don't recognize the outside views. They don't recognize that it's possible that people feel sympathy towards Trump. You may not feel sympathy for Trump. I may not feel sympathy for Trump, but I know a lot of people who do, and a lot of people who aren't necessarily Trump supporters. I know a lot of black people who feel like the system is out to get Trump, and they identify with that because they feel like the system is out to get them. They call this radio program, and they don't like Donald Trump, but they feel sympathy towards him, and they say as much. A lot of black females call this program. I'm kind of, so I got some ratings news about my show in Atlanta, and it makes sense to me now. The number one among like 35 to 64-year-old people, according to the Barrett news media story. And if you listen to this show, I get a lot of black women who call the program. Now, I know when I do events in Atlanta, nobody at my station there has believed me until they've come out and seen it for themselves. I got a lot of black women who are listeners to this program. And they don't necessarily vote Republican. They don't necessarily like Donald Trump, but the number of them who call in and say, yeah, I think they're out to get the guy. It seems kind of clear, particularly because this case doesn't have a good legal basis. They kind of get that. And it makes him come across as sympathetic. So look what's happening in the polling. I played you the audio yesterday of the NBC polling. People who think Donald Trump is more competent than Joe Biden, it's a complete reversal now. It's like 48% think Trump is more competent, 30% think Biden's more competent. Who's mentally and physically up for the job? Over 50% think Trump, only 20% think Biden. Who's better to fight inflation? Over 50% think Trump, only 20% think Biden. Who's more likable? In 2020, Joe Biden won. The guy you'd want to have a beer with. Now it's reversed. More people find Donald Trump likable. And it's not just that more people find Donald Trump likable. It's that more people like what they got from his administration than from Biden's administration. These should be big red flags for the Democrats. But they continue to hold on to the idea that the people who vote most often, which is now their base, used to be the Republican base, it is now the Democrats' base, the people who vote most often hate Donald Trump and will vote for Joe Biden. That's what they're hanging on to, that none of this matters because Donald Trump's voters are going to forget to go out and vote. You know what's going to happen? We've already seen this in Democratic primaries. What, up in Massachusetts we saw this? People got robocalls saying, hey, the election's been canceled today due to weather. Come out next week to vote. And idiots buy that sort of stuff. The Democrats are going to do a mass voter suppression campaign while claiming that the Republicans are the ones suppressing the vote. You can already see it in the dynamic. The people who are less likely to vote overwhelmingly support Donald Trump. If he can turn those people into voters and get them to actually vote, Donald Trump will win the election. Now, I want to stamp this out for all of you, for all you stolen conspiracy theorists, stolen election conspiracy theorists. The people most likely to vote in America are Biden supporters. The people less likely to vote but are registered to vote are Trump supporters. If Joe Biden wins in November, it's not because he stole it. It's going to be because Donald Trump's voters decided to show up on Election Day and then got so frustrated with the long lines, they stayed home. They turned around and left. That's what's going to happen. My prediction is if Joe Biden wins, that's what happens. That Joe Biden has the machinery to generate early voting and Donald Trump doesn't. And that Donald Trump's voters will show up on Election Day, see long lines, say, I'm not standing on line for this. I'll come back later. And then they forget. Because that's the pattern. Do I think both sides will engage in hanky-panky? Oh, you betcha. Both sides will. Both sides are so convinced the other side's going to steal the election that they're going to try to steal it first. If Donald Trump can turn his voters out, he wins. That's what the data shows. The problem is turning out people who don't likely vote. I mean, you may not understand, you may not believe this, you may not recognize this, but it's the God's honest truth. If you say you're going to vote and you don't regularly vote, the odds are you're not going to go vote. If you say you're going to vote, but you do not regularly vote, the odds are you're not going to go vote. And that's Trump supporters. But increasingly, the polling shows these trials are galvanizing people to make Trump a sympathetic figure and people want to go support him. The Democrats, I think, made a strategic mistake by deciding to prosecute Donald Trump, by rushing the prosecution of this case and trying to rush the prosecution of the other cases. It makes Donald Trump look like a victim to a lot of Americans. And Americans, they like an underdog, and they are very sympathetic to people who come across to them as victims, which Donald Trump does in both cases. An underdog victim against Joe Biden and the Democrats controlling these prosecutions. You tell Democrats this, and they get very angry with you for pointing it out. But my job's to tell you the truth, not to tell you what you want to hear. And the truth is, these trials are helping Donald Trump. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson. Delighted to be with you. The phone number, 877-973-7425. So, mentioning this Trump trial, I've had the TV on in the background. It's been on CNN because I know what I'm going to get with Fox, and I know what I'm going to get with CNN or with MSNBC. With CNN, it's curious because a lot of independent voters who consider themselves above partisanship, that's where they go. And it's been wall-to-wall obsessive about Trump. He's good for their ratings. They don't want to admit it, but they need him. There could be a nuclear bomb that's exploded somewhere in the world, and I don't know that most of these TV networks would cover it because they're so obsessed with this trial. It's remarkable. All right, I want to go to the phones here. Jim calling from Dayton, Ohio, WHIO. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Great. What's going on?
I have a question. Why are Americans so dead set against Israel defending themselves against Hamas when there was bad things happen in war, but us Americans destroyed thousands and thousands and thousands of Japanese at the end of World War II in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we celebrated and rejoiced that. Now, it was just as wrong then as it is now, but people don't seem to understand that this kind of thing is going to happen when you have a war. And I don't understand why they're retaliating so bad against it.
So, we got to break this one down. First of all, I would say, for some reason, I think it was Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or somebody started this argument over the U.S. was immoral for dropping the bomb in Japan. Absolutely not. We dropped the first one for Japan and the second one for the commies, and we absolutely needed to drop both bombs. It forestalled a lot more deaths. I will absolutely defend dropping both atomic bombs in Japan in World War II as necessary. But I would say that what you're seeing right now, this antagonism against Israel defending itself, is coming from anti-Semites who are funded by a lot of pro-Hamas groups. The media doesn't cover this stuff. I got in trouble a couple of years ago for speculating on NGOs that were funding illegal immigration to this country, and it turns out I was right. No one's ever apologized. They took me off some news programs for having speculated that was the case, saying I was peddling lies, and it turned out to be true. Same thing is here. You got a lot of these left-wing groups funding the anti-Semites. It's not Americans overall. Most Americans want Israel to be able to support itself and defend itself, but they also, you got to keep in mind, are hearing from an anti-Semitic American media that is way more sympathetic towards Hamas these days and Gaza than they are to Israel, and you got to also understand that lens. Now, I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank. Y'all, they have rethought banking online. Like, for example, what happens if you got a pile of cash? What do? Well, Old Glory Bank has pioneered a way for you to go to one of 85,000 retail locations around the country, deposit your cash, and it gets into your bank. Or you can do like online check deposit as well. They've rethought these things. Now they want to rethink ownership of the bank. If you go to own.oldglorybank.com, you can find out how to, as an accredited investor, take ownership interest in Old Glory Bank instead of them becoming a publicly traded company on the stock market. It's own.own.oldglorybank.com if you want to invest in Old Glory Bank. Accredited investors only. It's not FDIC insured. Your money could go up in value or down in value. It's not insured. This is an investment. If you want a bank account with Old Glory Bank in 8 minutes or less, you can get one at oldglorybank.com. I've got one. It's great. No fees. They're a great bank. Oldglorybank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. If you're interested in own.oldglorybank.com, that is not FDIC insured, and your investment may go down in value. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, today is the last episode of Shogun. I've been telling you guys to watch this show. I've gotten a lot of emails from people telling me they've started watching. Well, tonight's the finale. It's already online, and I haven't watched it yet. And all I want to do is go home and watch Shogun tonight. Sit in my hot tub and watch Shogun. I cannot wait. Y'all, this show has been so good. And if you know anything about the history, it's a true story, based on a true story. You know how it ends if you know the history. But I'm looking for, my gosh, am I looking forward to it. All right, I want to go take Frank's phone call. Frank, welcome to the Eric Erickson Show. How are you?
I'm good, Eric. Let me
What's
take you
going
off
on?
the speaker here.
All right.
Hello?
Yep.
I got you off speaker. Listen, also on that bomb, the third thing that the bomb did is it also let the world know the damage it would do, and it probably prevented somebody from starting a war with that bomb.
Undoubtedly so.
But I really called, Donald Trump with his gag order. I got a novel idea that when he goes out to speak to the press, he has a spokesman. It could be a comedian or anybody else to talk to him. He could just sit back and grin, and the guy can talk about everything he wanted to talk about the trial. Couldn't that happen?
No, because it would violate the proxy rule. You can't have somebody come out clearly under your direction and say things on your behalf about the trial when you're not allowed to, or it's attributed to you. And if the guy screws up, Trump would be punished.
Okay, well, and that ended that idea. Second
yeah,
idea,
look, it's not a bad one. Look, my son, like my son did this thing. We wanted to do the Trump trial thing, and that'd be fine if it's an independent person, unrelated to, not connected to, has no ties to Trump. You come out and you tell what you think Donald Trump thinks. Now that would be totally fine. But if the campaign were to do it, it would be attributed to Trump, which is the problem. So you got to have just an independent person who can do it. If I direct you to go out and say these things for me, you are like the mouth. I'm Sauron and you're the mouth of Sauron. You come out and you say these things on my behalf. They're attributed to me. And because they're attributed to me, it is me trying to get around the gag rule. And if you try to get around the gag rule, well, you've broken the gag rule. Therefore, you're going to be in trouble with the judge. And Trump came very close today to getting in trouble with the judge. And his Truth Social messages, he's going to cross the line if he's not careful. His lawyers need to tell him to cut it out. Yes, I realize it's unfair. We should all acknowledge it is unfair. Doesn't matter, though. Fair or not, he's not allowed to do it, and he's doing it, and that's going to get him in a lot of trouble. He should instead go out and attack Joe Biden. Talk about Joe Biden. Donald Trump should forcefully condemn the anti-Semitism on college campuses and wonder why Joe Biden hasn't done it. Bait Joe Biden into flubbing more. There are lots of things he could do on that front instead of talking about the trial. He really, 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 just as a legal standpoint, you may not like it. You may not think it's fair. It doesn't matter. The judge doesn't care about your feelings. He cares about the gag order he imposed, and Trump is walking a very dangerous line by continuing to put social media messages out about it. Now, we need to talk about furries. Okay, so I got a buddy of mine, Mo Lane. We rode at Red State together for years. And I never knew what a furry was. Mo Lane knew what a furry was. And Mo Lane told us about the furries. So furries are people. In fact, there's what's the show on CSI? Back in the day, CSI was a big thing, and CSI had an episode about a furry convention in Las Vegas. I will not be at one of those when I'm there next week, full disclosure. But so the furries are people who dress up as animals, and they get some level of erotic satisfaction out of dressing up as animals. It's very bizarre. And increasingly, there are kids in schools who are identifying as furries, but they're not in costumes necessarily. So out in, I want to say it was Utah, some kids staged a walkout in a school because they were protesting that the furries have taken over their school. Here are some of the quotes from these kids. Furries bite our ankles. They walk on all fours down the hallways. Furries scare me. They eat out of dog bowls in the lunchroom. The furries wear masks at school every day, and we can't even wear masks on Halloween. We came to learn not to get eaten by the furries. This is a middle school in Utah. Now, a number of schools, including this school, came out and debunked this. The schools came out and said this isn't true. This particular middle school in Utah, its leadership went out to the press, which happily complied and told people this isn't true. The Utah fact checkers came out and said this isn't actually a thing. In fact, here's the story from USA Today. A protest at a Utah middle school prompted district officials to address rumors of alleged biting, licking initiated by furries. The Nebo School District is responding after parents and students protested last week at Mount Nebo Middle School in Payson, Utah. Salt Lake City-based TV station KTVX and Fox News reported. During the walkout, protesters chanted, "We the people, not the animals. Compelled speech is not free speech, and stop brainwashing us." School officials have told the outlet the claims are not true. USA Today contacted the Nebo School District on Monday morning and did not receive a response. A Change.org petition was created last Sunday asking the school district to enforce its dress code, which would prohibit students from wearing furry costumes. The petition had over 2,700 signatures on Monday morning. The school district denies that this is the case. In an email to parents, the Nebo School District said it expects all students to be respectful towards each other while at school. "We hope you will treat others how you would like to be treated. Outstanding behavior might demonstrate curiosity, understanding, patience, and tolerance. One of our goals is to ensure that you will be able to come to school each day to learn the academic curriculum and appropriate citizenship. As responsible citizens, we hope you will look out for each other, take care of each other, and treat each other with kindness." The Nebo School District also took issue with misinformation, saying, "We want to assure you that rumors circulating online about student behavior are completely untrue. These are 11 and 12-year-old students, and while sometimes these students may come to school with a headband that has ears, sometimes with giant bows, and sometimes dressed as their favorite athlete, there have been no students attending school wearing masks, animal costumes, or acting like animals, saying biting, licking, costumes, and animal behavior are unfounded allegations." Here's the problem. After they denied it, pictures came out of schools in the hallway, or kids in the hallways behaving exactly as these kids said. They denied it and said it wasn't true, and now it turns out it actually was true. The media grabbed hold of the denial from the authorities and said, clearly it's not true. These students, they're probably being spun up by the right-wing media. No, there were kids in school who wanted to identify as animals. They wanted to act like animals. And it's not just that school in Utah. This is a middle school phenomenon happening in public schools around the country. In fact, I've gotten an email from somebody that said that this happened to their kid in school. There's a kid in their school who wanted to be treated as an animal there. It's not just treat a boy as a girl or a girl as a boy. It's treat the boy as a cat and the girl as a dog. What do you call the girl who identifies as a female dog? You might want to identify as a cat, lady. This is insane. And it's easy to be dismissive of it, and you do have to understand that part. It's easy to be dismissive of it because it sounds like nonsense, doesn't it? You have public schools where the school administrators are allowing kids to come to school and identify as animals and crawl on the floor and bite people and lick people and eat out of dog food bowls in the cafeteria. That sounds insane, and yet it's happening. A buddy of mine says, forget banning TikTok, ban Tumblr. Yes, insanity at Tumblr. All the furries live there. Y'all, seriously though, this is demented. And I want to put a bug in your ear on something. A lot of you want to defund Ukraine. You don't want to spend money there. I disagree with you, but I understand your concerns. I hope even if you disagree with me, you understand my argument in favor of it. But we spend way more money as a country on education than we do on foreign aid. Maybe we should be defunding the federal government when it comes to education. Maybe we should be telling the federal government, stop spending money on schools. Let the states handle it. The federal government, our tax dollars, should not be paying for the indoctrination of these kids in schools. The federal government should stop spending money on education. It's supposed to be a state function anyway. So make it a state function. Make it a local and state level function and get the federal government out of it. That would save more money than the money we spend on Ukraine. Federal government's got to start cutting somewhere. Might as well cut education. Look what's happening with education. Schools are becoming indoctrination centers for crazy and for anti-Semites. Gut the money. Let the states and the local governments pay for it. give block grants, if nothing else, to the states on education or to the parents so the parents can pay for their own kids' schooling and allow parents a reprieve to get out of the public schools where kids are acting like furries. This is insanity that this is happening. And what makes it so much more frustrating to me, honestly, is that the media denies this is happening. The media says this isn't true because the school principals say it's not true or the school administrators say it's not true. And meanwhile, the kids are catching it on tape. I mean, all these kids in public schools, they've got cell phones. They videotape this stuff. I've seen the videos. People have lost their minds. The inmates are running the asylum. Is that not just wild? You want to send your kid to school to learn the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, to read, to write, to do math, reading, writing, arithmetic. And what's happened instead is they're getting indoctrinated on pronouns and what animal they identify as. This is crazy, absurd. And yet this is the modern education establishment in so much of the country, with progressives in charge. It's time to get your kids out of government schools to save them. Now, I want to save your company some money, and you can by using Stamps.com. It's so convenient. It's so easy. I used it just yesterday and arranged pickup from UPS at my office. I never had to go stand in line. If you go to Stamps.com, you click on the microphone and you put in Eric, E-R-I-C-K, you can get saving and shipping today with Stamps.com. Stamps.com has a great interface. You can even order your shipping supplies from them. You go to Stamps.com, click the mic, put in Eric. You get a free digital scale. You get some free postage. And then you get shipping and savings so you can find the cheapest rates with UPS or the post office or the fastest rates with UPS or the post office and get your packages shipped. You can even arrange pickup at your home or your office so you don't have to go stand in line with all the people coughing on you. It saves you money. It saves you time. You pick the fastest option or the cheapest option. You need a mobile device or you need a laptop or desktop, and then you need a printer. And you can print your labels. You can arrange everything you need for picking your packages up at your home or your office. Never stand in line. And then when you're out of shipping supplies, you need boxes, you need tape, you need the stuffing, you need the bubble wrap, you need the stamps. You can get it all at Stamps.com. So you go to Stamps.com, you click on the microphone, you put in Eric, E-R-I-C-K, you get shipping, you get saving today with Stamps.com. And here's the thing, folks, no contract to sign. You can cancel at any time. It's a great convenience for people who ship a lot of packages or for your business. Hello there, it is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The various funding packages for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan have headed into the United States Senate. They are negotiating those. They should be rapidly up for a vote. They'll be through the Senate this week. They're all expected to pass. What I find so interesting are the arguments from TikTok that to force ByteDance's sale is a violation of the First Amendment. Last I checked, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law that violates or that establishes a religion, that denies you the right to practice your religion, that denies you the right to speak or to assemble or of the press. Doesn't say anything about forcing a sale. They have this talking point. Now, I realize that people who rely on TikTok for their news are dumb. I mean, they get these little exerted news blurbs on TikTok. These are not bright people if you're relying on TikTok for your news. It's why they've all become transgender furries who support Hamas. But it's not a violation of free speech to force the Chinese to divest from a company because of the adversarial nature of China and how they use the platform. You're not saying anything about the user's speech. The users can make their speech anywhere. This is about a platform. It's not about the speech. If, Instagram has its reels. The number of people I know who are married and their spouse stares at TikTok and reels all day. Doesn't get anything done, just stares at reels all day. You don't have to use TikTok. You can use Snapchat. You can use Facebook. You can use Instagram. The platform is not your speech. Your speech is what you say or do, and you can say or do anything, just not on the platform. So it seems to me that the free speech argument that TikTok is trying to make is a very weak argument. And what's notable here is that if the United States government passed a law forcing a company to give up control of a platform, in the interest of investors, you would think they would wish to comply. That TikTok is refusing really kind of does expose them as an agent of the Chinese government. When the United States government passed laws restricting trade with China and tariffs with China, Apple, which makes its products in China, began investing in Vietnam and in India. Apple didn't say it had a free speech right. Apple started investing in India and Vietnam because it has seen where things are headed. That TikTok has doubled down on this and says it's either China controls us or we're going to close down. That's not a legitimate company. You don't say either the commies must control us or we're going to go out of business if you're there to run a business because you have shareholders and the like. What I find kind of funny is Jeff Yass, who is the Republican billionaire, invested in TikTok. He's going to lose the fight. Donald Trump has come out on social media and blasted the sale, blaming Joe Biden. They're going to lose the fight. There are enough Republicans in Congress who see it as a national security threat. The Club for Growth has come out against it. Look, I love the Club for Growth. I disagree with them on this issue. I think they're wrong on this issue. Jeff Yass is a donor of Club for Growth. I understand helping donors in something like this, but TikTok is a bad platform controlled by the communist Chinese that is used to indoctrinate our kids and spy on us, and it should go, and it's going to go. Congress is going to pass this law. I've read the language of the legislation, and I don't see how it's not going to – I don't see how the Supreme Court would throw it out. First Amendment jurisprudence in this country is not based on platform. It's based on speech, and platform is not speech. When you can make your speech on other platforms as well, it's going to be hard to make the case. Now, I guess they can argue, well, I built up 2 million people here, except you built up 2 million people on someone else's platform that they control, and they can then control your speech. Therefore, it's not about your speech. It's about them and their control. TikTok delenda est. It looks like it's going to happen, and it could happen as soon as this week. And then it'll take them up to 9 months, maybe a year to sell it. Or China's just going to shut the whole thing down. It'd be funny if they turned it off for a day and people freaked out. Oh, my gosh, watch the little furries and the freaks just freak out because TikTok is down for a day. That'd be hilarious.